Good Wednesday morning or afternoon or evening or whenever you may happen to join. For those that may not join us all the time, I'm Reverend Jennifer Finley, our Momentum and Discipleship Pastor here at First United Methodist Church in Kirksville. And this is our time, our midweek time to pause together, perhaps to still sip your coffee as I'm doing or your tea, and to pause and to take a deep breath and to wonder together where God is at work and alive in our world. We know and we trust that God is alive and at work in our hearts and our minds and our souls and in our world. But it can be very hard sometimes to see that, to feel that. I know conversations I have had this week have acknowledged that sometimes our world, often it feels like our world is really hard when we're hearing news of yet another school shooting in North Carolina or another shooting in Texas. When the news swirl feels like so much, it is hard sometimes to ask, where are we seeing God in the midst? Sometimes that may feel like a futile question, and yet it is one that we have asked ourselves together each week at this time for, since the spring of 2020. And I've shared before with you that it has helped shape and form my own spiritual life, and I hope yours as well. So as we come into this time, we do ask that same question. Where are we seeing God? Where is God meeting us? And the answer to that for me this week was in one line of scripture that wouldn't quite let me go. For those of you who worship online or in person with us on Sunday mornings, you know that we kicked off a new worship series, a short worship series focused on travel. The travels that we both choose to go on and the ones that are chosen for us, both in terms of physical travels or that metaphor of leaving home and encountering something new. And on Sunday, we looked at a passage from Exodus. As the people of Israel were leaving where they had been to return, hopefully, to their homeland. But of course, we know that there was lots of wandering and wilderness in between. And this passage reads, when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was nearer. For God thought if the people faced war, they may change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people by the roundabout way of the wilderness, bordering the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of the land of Egypt, prepared for battle. And Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who had required a solemn oath of the Israelites, saying, God will surely come to you, and then you must carry my bones with you from here. It goes on to talk about how they camped for the night at the edge of the wilderness. And on Sunday, we talked about the ways in which sometimes maybe we are camped out at the edge of the unknown, at the edge of the wilderness. But what has caught my attention and where God has been meeting me in a strange way is in this verse 19. And Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who had required a solemn oath of the Israelites, saying, God will surely come to you, and then you must carry my bones with you from here. That wouldn't quite leave me alone this week, so I started to think about it, pray about it, ask God about it. I looked back into Genesis. The very end of the book of Genesis is the end of Joseph's story. One of the patriarchs of the kingdom of Israel. The end of Genesis reads, so Joseph and his father's household remained in Egypt. Now, Egypt was where they had been, but it wasn't where they started. It wasn't their homeland. Joseph lived 110 years, so in Bible times, Joseph was very, very old. Joseph lived to see children of the third generations of Ephraim, and the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were likewise born upon Joseph's knees. At length Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die. God will surely take notice of you and bring you up from this land to the land that he promised. So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear by saying, when God has taken notice of you, you shall carry up my bones from here. I was thinking about that. For at the end of Joseph's life, he gave hope and said, yes, there are good things to come. I may not see them, but when you do travel, when you do travel to that new place, when you do travel into the unknown, take my bones and bury me in my homeland. Which got me to thinking, when we embark on travels, when we camp out at the edge of the wilderness, we don't come empty-handed. We sometimes like to think that we start off on new journeys, new adventures, without any baggage, or that we're packing our suitcases from the start. I was talking with somebody this week about attempting to pack light for a trip and how challenging that was going to be for at least one person in the party that's traveling. And I can empathize with that. The packing light's not an easy task, at least not for me. Because I say, well, I might need that. I love this because it acknowledges that the Israelites, when they came to the edge of the wilderness and camped there for the night and prepared for what was ahead, they didn't come empty-handed. They came with baggage. They came with some things that were chosen to bring with them and others that were part of their story, their family story. And it got me to wondering, what do we bring with us when we are trying to enter through new doors, when we are camped out at the edge of the wilderness? We bring some things by choice and others that are given to us. There are some things that are light and easy to carry and other things that are not. We bear our own grief of our lives and sometimes even the grief of others. We come bearing our expectations, whether they're our own or ones that others have laid upon us. We come bearing some of our obligations, whether they're ones that we feel like we have put on ourselves or the obligations to family and friends or even long past history. We bring all of that into our travels with us. And we sometimes think that's a negative thing. It's just a human thing. That's what we do. We sometimes think, well, baggage is bad. Well, no, baggage is human. It's one reason this line in the scripture has caught me, because they came with the bones of Joseph. And that made me think about, how is it that God meets us in that moment when we are preparing to embark on something new? And we're either feeling the weight or the joy or both of our own expectations and the expectations of others. I didn't have time this morning, but if I had, I would have been joining you from one of our local cemeteries. You know, I enjoy joining you from places that help reflect what we're talking about. And in this case, I think sometimes a cemetery gives us that sense of our ancestors, the expectations we have of ourselves and others. And so I'm thinking, how is it that God meets us in those moments before we embark on something new, where we're feeling both the weight and the joy of what we come with, that comes with us, our baggage. And that's where I thought about a blessing. We've been talking about the ways in which blessing is a verb, how we can bless each other. And we've been using some of the work of Kate Bowler. And this one, and Jessica Ritchie, her co-author. This blessing I thought I would offer for ourselves. It's for when you need to hold on or let go. God, sometimes it feels like a better person wouldn't be like this, tethered to so many hopes and fears and expectations. Blessed are we, pulled between wanting to let go, sometimes needing to let go, and also needing to hold on. Blessed are we when we yearn for connection and love and touch. Blessed are we when we hunger for the beauty of life itself and the people to fill it. Blessed are we when we are unable to say, I'm letting it go, because we feel like we will be washed away into an ocean of nothingness. Teach us to cling to the truths that enliven our spirits and loosen our grip on the painful untruths, like the one that says we are alone or unlovable, or that desire itself is the enemy. Teach us to hunger for what is good and be filled. There will be no easy addition and subtraction. We will lose and we will gain. And almost none of it will make much sense at the time, and it will force our hands open. In the ebb and flow of wins and losses, comings and goings, may we look for the divine in the mystery of it all. the stubbornness of flowers that still smile at us in the grocery store, and the need for the endless small reminders that the pain of it all, the comedy of all, will point us back to love. Friends, wherever we are camped, whether it's at the end of one journey and the beginning of a next, whether the wilderness ahead feels exciting or daunting, know that we are not alone. And we hear this blessing that blesses us to acknowledge what we bring with us into our journeys, and also acknowledges that we can open our hands and hold those things loosely. For you see, the Israelites didn't hold on to the bones of Joseph. Eventually they did indeed return them to his homeland, prepare a resting place, and they opened their hands for what new things might come their way. So friends, as we go into this journey together, know that we are not alone. Go in peace.